Day 53 brought the sound Tae-sung had been waiting for, ship engines. He was working on his shelter when he heard them, multiple ships descending through the atmosphere. His heart jumped. Rescue. Finally. After almost 2 months alone on this planet, someone was coming for him. Saber heard the ships too. She emerged from the forest with her juveniles close behind. Her scales bristled. The sound was alien to her, threatening. She positioned herself between Tae-sung and the sky, protecting him. "It's okay," Tae-sung said softly. He placed a hand on her head. "They're here to help. They're friends, probably." The ships landed in the clearing where his wreck still sat. 3 vessels, 1 large transport, 2 smaller escort ships. The designs were unfamiliar, not human ships. Galactic Council markings on the hulls. Tae-sung grabbed the emergency beacon and walked toward the ships. Saber followed close behind. The juveniles stayed hidden in the trees but watching. Smart kids, the transport's door opened. A ramp extended. Figures emerged. Several different species. Tae-sung recognized some from his xenobiology studies. A tall Kronar in military uniform. 2 small Pixith scientists with their 4 arms carrying equipment. And then a human woman. She was tall with short black hair. Professional clothing under an environmental suit. She saw Tae-sung and smiled. Relieved. "Quan Tae-sung," she called out. "That's me," he replied. Then Saber growled low. Warning. Too many strangers approaching too fast. The rescue team stopped. They saw Saber for the first time. The Kronar's hand went to his weapon. The Pixith froze. But the human woman held up her hand. "Stop, I'm Dr. Hwang Mina," she said calmly. "I'm a human exobiologist. We've been watching your broadcasts. All of us have." She gestured to the other team members. "We know about your bond with the Void Stalker. We're not here to hurt her." Tae-sung felt relief wash through him. They understood. They weren't going to try to separate him from Saber. "Thank you," he said. "Her name is Saber. She has 3 juveniles in the forest. They're part of this too," Dr. Hwang nodded. "We need to talk, all of us. There are some complications with your rescue." That didn't sound good. Tae-sung led them to his cave camp. Saber followed but kept her distance from the strangers. The Kronar, who introduced himself as Admiral Brix, couldn't stop staring at her. Not with fear, with fascination. "I bet against you," he admitted. "I was certain you would die in the first week. I've never been happier to lose a bet." They sat around Tae-sung's fire. Dr. Hwang explained the situation. The Galactic Council was having a massive debate about what to do. Tae-sung's broadcasts had caused problems. Big problems. Most spacefaring species had never domesticated animals. They evolved differently, built technology faster, never developed that specific bond with other creatures. The idea of turning a predator into a companion was alien to them. Shocking, maybe even frightening. "Some council members think humans are dangerous," Dr. Hwang said carefully. "They see what you've done and they worry. What if humans can do this with any creature? What if they can control the wildlife on any planet? It changes the balance of power." Tae-sung laughed bitterly. "I'm not controlling Saber, we're partners. She chose to trust me as much as I chose to trust her." "I know," Dr. Hwang said. "Most humans know. But try explaining that to species who see all non-sapient life as just resources or threats. They don't understand the middle ground." One of the Pixith scientists spoke up. Their voice was high and quick. "We've been studying your broadcasts in detail. The bonding process. The behavioral changes in the Void Stalker. It's remarkable. Unprecedented. We'd like to document this properly. Study the relationship." "What does that mean for me?" Tae-sung asked. "And for Saber?" Admiral Brix answered. "The Council wants you off this planet. That part is non-negotiable. You're a galactic celebrity now. Nearly 5 billion beings watch your broadcasts. Keeping you here would be bad politics. And Saber? Silence." Dr. Hwang looked uncomfortable. "That's the complication. Galactic law says we can't remove apex predators from their native environment. It disrupts the ecosystem. The Council wants to leave her here." "No." Tae-sung's voice was flat, hard. "I'm not leaving without her. Without them. They're family now." "We thought you'd say that," Dr. Hwang said. She glanced at Admiral Brix. "That's why we've been negotiating a different solution. It took days of arguing, but we got approval. Conditional approval." She explained the deal. Saber and her offspring could be relocated to a research habitat, a massive facility designed to study alien megafauna. It would give them space to live naturally, while allowing scientists to observe the bonding process. Taesung would stay with them as primary handler and researcher. You'd be working for the Galactic Institute of Xenobiology, Dr. Huang said, teaching others what you've learned, showing them that this bond is possible, that it's beneficial, that humans aren't trying to weaponize wildlife, just understand it. Taesung looked at Saber. She was lying near the fire, watching everything. Her juveniles had crept closer, curious about the strangers. One of them was sniffing at the Pixith scientist's equipment bag. "What do you think, girl?" he asked her softly. "Want to go somewhere new? Somewhere safer?" Saber made a questioning sound. She didn't understand the words, but she understood the tone. Change was coming. "Big change. I'll be with you," Taesung promised. "Wherever we go. Whatever happens. We're family. That doesn't change." The next 2 days were busy. The rescue team set up proper equipment, ran tests, documented everything. Dr. Huang interviewed Taesung for hours, recording every detail of the bonding process. The Pixith scientists studied Saber carefully, using scanners and taking samples with Taesung's help. Saber tolerated it all because Taesung was there. She trusted him. Where he went, she would follow. Admiral Brix approached Taesung on the second evening. The Kronar stood nearly 3 meters tall, impressive and intimidating, but his voice was respectful. "I've been in the military for 40 years, he said, "seen hundreds of worlds, thousands of species, but I've never seen anything like what you did here. You survived through intelligence, adaptation, and something else, something uniquely human." "What's that?" Taesung asked. "Hope," the Admiral said. "You looked at the most dangerous predator on this planet and you didn't see death. You saw potential. You saw a friend waiting to be made. That's either insane or brilliant. Maybe both," Taesung smiled. "My grandmother used to say the same thing about me." "Your grandmother was wise." The Admiral paused. "The Council will be watching you closely. What you do next matters. You're representing your species now, all of humanity." "No pressure then," Taesung joked. But he understood. This was bigger than him, bigger than Saber. This was about showing the galaxy who humans were, what they could do. On day 55, it was time to leave. Loading Saber and her juveniles onto the transport was tricky. The big ship had a special cargo bay modified into a habitat space, comfortable, secure. But Saber didn't want to go inside at first. Too enclosed. Too strange. Taesung walked in first. "Come on, girl, follow me." "Trust me," Saber hesitated. Then she followed. Because he asked. Because she trusted him more than she feared the unknown. Her juveniles scrambled after her. Dr. Huang watched with amazement. "Incredible," she whispered. "A creature that evolved to fear enclosed spaces. And she just walks in because you asked." "That's what trust means," Taesung said. The last thing he did was grab his emergency beacon, the little device that had broadcast everything. He looked at the camera one final time. "This is Quan Taesung, day 55. Final broadcast from this planet. We survived, all of us. We're going home now. Well, to a new home, together," he paused. "To everyone who watched, who supported me, who believed this was possible. Thank you. And to those who didn't believe, watch us. We're just getting started." The transport lifted off. Taesung sat in the habitat bay with Saber's head on his lap. Her juveniles explored the space curiously. Dr. Huang brought food and water, made sure everyone was comfortable. "You know," she said, "I studied your broadcast from the beginning. The comments, the debates. Do you know what changed people's minds? What made them start believing?" "What?" Taesung asked. "Day 30. When Saber brought you food, that's when even the skeptics had to admit something real was happening. Predators don't share food with prey. They share with family." Taesung scratched behind Saber's jaw. She rumbled contentedly. "Family, yeah, that's what this is." The journey to the research station took 3 days. During that time, Dr. Huang told Taesung about the chaos his broadcasts had caused. Entire fields of study were being rewritten. Xenopsychology, interspecies relations, survival training. Humans were suddenly in demand across the galaxy as consultants and advisors. "There's even talk of establishing an exchange program," she said. "Humans teaching other species about animal bonding. Cultural exchange." "That's good," Taesung said. "Understanding goes both ways." "There's something else," Dr. Huang added carefully. "A human scientist named Yuna has been following your broadcasts from the start. She wrote papers supporting your work. Defended you when others called it dangerous. She's being assigned to the research facility, too. You'll be working together. Tae-sung remembered the name. The supportive comments. The understanding. He smiled. I'd like to meet her. The research station was impressive. Day 7 started with rain. Tae-sung woke up cold and sore. Water dripped from the cave ceiling onto his face. He sat up slowly, wincing at the pain in his ribs. They were healing, but everything still hurt. He checked the emergency beacon. Still broadcasting. Still no rescue signal, but something was different. The viewer count had numbers now. 23 million beings were watching his survival feed across the galactic network. 23 million. Tae-sung stared at the number. He was entertainment. A reality show for aliens who wanted to see if the human would die today or tomorrow. The thought made him angry at first. Then he laughed. If he was going to die on this planet, at least he wouldn't die alone and forgotten. Good morning to all my viewers, he said to the camera. Today I'm going to find food and water. The protein bars won't last forever. I need to learn what's safe to eat here. He had spent the last 6 days learning about his new home. The planet was dangerous, but it followed rules. The pack hunters, which he called grayscales, hunted at dawn and dusk. They avoided the heat of midday. That gave him a window to explore safely. The forest had fresh water from a stream nearby. Tae-sung had tested it with his purification tablets. Clean enough to drink. Good. That was one major problem solved. Food was harder. He had found some plants that looked like they might be edible. But testing alien plants was risky. His xenobiology books talked about the process. Start with skin contact. Wait for a reaction. Then try a tiny taste. Wait again. Then a small amount. Wait longer. It took days to test a single plant species safely. So far, he had found 2 plants that didn't kill him. One was a purple root vegetable that tasted bitter but filled his stomach. The other was a type of nut that was actually decent. He was surviving on those, plus the remaining protein bars. Tae-sung grabbed his salvage supplies and headed out into the rain. The forest was different in daylight. Beautiful in a deadly way. Trees rose 30 meters high. Vines hung everywhere. Strange flowers bloomed in colors he had no names for, and everything wanted to kill him. He had learned that the hard way on day 3. The plant looked harmless. Bright blue leaves. Pretty yellow flowers. Tae-sung had reached out to touch it, and the whole thing had exploded into motion. Thorns shot out like needles. He jumped back just in time. One thorn scratched his arm. Within minutes, his whole arm was numb. It took 6 hours for the feeling to come back. After that, he touched nothing without testing it first with a stick. Today he was hunting for something specific. He had seen tracks yesterday. Large tracks. Single animal walking alone. Not like the grayscales, which moved in packs. This was something else. Something bigger. Tae-sung followed the tracks carefully. They led deeper into the forest, toward a rocky area with cliffs. He climbed up on a large boulder to get a better view. Then he froze. Below him, in a clearing, was the creature. It was massive. 4 meters long, not counting the tail. 6 legs, thick and powerful. The body was covered in scales that looked like black glass. Patterns on the scales glowed with a soft blue light. The head was angular, almost like a wolf's head, but larger. And the teeth. Even from this distance, Tae-sung could see the long fangs. The creature was eating something. Tae-sung couldn't see what. He stayed perfectly still on his boulder, hardly breathing. The emergency beacon was in his pocket, still recording. His viewers were seeing this too. The creature finished eating and looked around. Its eyes were intelligent, sharp. It wasn't just a dumb animal. Tae-sung had seen that look before in Earth's predators. Wolves, big cats, smart hunters that planned and learned. Then the creature did something that surprised him. It looked directly at Tae-sung's hiding spot. Tae-sung's heart stopped. Could it see him? Smell him? Hear his heartbeat? The creature stared for a long moment. Then it turned and walked away, disappearing into the forest like a shadow. Tae-sung waited 10 minutes before moving. His legs were shaking when he climbed down from the boulder. He pulled out the beacon and spoke to the camera. That was the apex predator, he said. Has to be. Nothing that moves with that much confidence is prey. That's the top of the food chain. He paused. It knew I was there. I'm sure of it. But it didn't attack. Why? He thought about it as he walked back to his cave. The creature had looked at him with curiosity, not hunger. Maybe he was still too strange. Too unknown. Predators were often cautious about new things. They learned by watching first. That gave Tai Sung an idea. A crazy idea. But then again, everything about this situation was crazy. Back at the cave, he checked his supplies. He had caught some of the local prey animals in simple traps. Small six-legged things that looked like rabbits mixed with lizards. They were good eating. He had more than he needed. What if he could use the extra food as an offering? The thought was insane. He knew it was insane. But Tai Sung came from a farming colony on Earth. He had grown up around animals. Cows, horses, dogs, chickens. His grandmother had taught him how to work with animals, how to read their behavior, how to earn their trust. On Earth, humans had taken wolves, the most dangerous predators of their time, and turned them into dogs. They had done it thousands of years ago with patience and food and understanding. Could the same principles work here? Probably not. This was an alien creature. Different biology. Different brain. Different evolution. But maybe, just maybe, some things were universal. Food was food. Trust was trust. Patience was patience. Tai Sung opened his journal and started writing notes. He needed to study the apex predator, learn its patterns, understand its territory. This would take time. Lots of time. But what else did he have? He was stuck here for at least 2 months. That night, he placed some of his trapped prey at the edge of the forest clearing. Not close to his cave. That would be stupid, but close enough that the creature might find it. He marked the spot with a small rock cairn so he would remember. Then he went back to his cave and waited. Day 8 started with the discovery. The food offering was gone. More importantly, there were tracks around it. The six-legged creature's tracks. The apex predator had come and taken the food. Tai Sung felt a strange excitement. First contact had been made. Sort of. He placed another offering that night, then another the night after. Each time the food was gone by morning. The creature was accepting his gifts. It hadn't connected them to Tai Sung yet. That was fine. This was a long process. On day 12, he saw the creature again. It was watching him from a distance as he gathered purple roots. Just watching. Tai Sung pretended not to notice. He worked slowly, calmly. No sudden movements. No threatening gestures. Just a harmless human doing harmless human things. After an hour, the creature left. Progress. By day 15, Tai Sung had established a routine. Morning foraging. Midday rest in the cave. Afternoon exploring and studying. Evening food offering. The creature appeared more often now, sometimes close enough that Tai Sung could see the details of its scales. His viewer count had grown to over 1 billion. The comments were interesting when he checked them. Most aliens thought he was insane. Some were taking bets on when he would die. But a few humans were watching too. One named Yuna kept posting supportive comments. She seemed to understand what he was trying to do. To my human viewers, Tai Sung said to the camera one evening, "You know our history. You know what we did with wolves and horses and hawks. I think I can do it again. I think I can make friends with this predator. Everyone else thinks I'm crazy. Maybe I am, but I'm going to try." He looked out at the forest where the creature lived. I'm going to try. Day 38 started with a gift. Tai Sung woke to find something at the cave entrance. At first he thought it was a threat. Some predator leaving a warning. Then he looked closer and understood. It was a kill. Fresh. Still warm. One of the six-legged prey animals. Its neck was broken cleanly, and there were tracks around it. Saber's tracks. She had brought him food. Tai Sung stared at the dead animal for a long moment. His chest felt tight. This was huge. This was the moment he had been hoping for. In wolf packs, sharing food was a bonding behavior. It meant acceptance. It meant family. Saber had just told him they were family. He picked up the emergency beacon and spoke to the camera. His voice was rough with emotion. She brought me food. She hunted for me. This is what wolves did thousands of years ago when they started bonding with humans. This is the beginning of domestication. This is history happening right now, the galaxy watched. 3.5 billion viewers across hundreds of worlds. Some understood what they were seeing. Most didn't. To them, this was just a predator and prey. But to the humans watching, this was something profound. This was their species' greatest gift happening again on an alien world. Saber appeared an hour later. She approached the cave without hesitation now. Her wound had healed remarkably well. Just a scar under the bandage that Tai Sung had removed days ago. She looked at him, looked at the prey animal, made a sound that Tae-sung had learned meant she wanted attention. He stepped forward and did something he had been building up courage to try. He reached out slowly and touched her head. His hand rested on the smooth scales between her eyes. Saber went still. Her glowing patterns pulsed. Tae-sung held his breath. This was the moment that would define everything. Would she accept touch? Would she see it as bonding or as threat? She leaned into his hand. Just slightly. But it was enough. Tae-sung laughed. Relief and joy mixing together. He scratched gently, finding the spots that made her rumble with contentment. Just like a dog, just like a cat. Some things really were universal. Good girl, he said softly. You're a good girl, Saber. The next week was the best of Tae-sung's time on the planet. Saber visited every day, sometimes multiple times. They had developed a routine. She would bring kills to share. He would provide the vegetables and fruits he had found. They would eat together. Sometimes she would let him examine her scales and claws, studying her biology. Sometimes she would just lie near the cave while he worked on his projects. He was building better tools now. A proper spear using ship metal and strong wood. A bow with arrows. Not because he needed to hunt anymore. Saber provided plenty of meat. But because he wanted to be useful to her. Partners needed to contribute. On day 42, Saber brought him to her den. She led him through the forest to a rocky outcrop. There, hidden in a crevice, was her nest, and inside were 3 small shapes. Juveniles, her offspring. Tae-sung's heart melted. They were tiny compared to Saber, maybe the size of large dogs. Their scales were softer, more gray than black. Their glowing patterns were dim but growing brighter. They hissed at him nervously. You have babies, Tae-sung whispered. You're a mother. Saber made a soft sound to her offspring, reassuring them. Then she looked at Tae-sung. The message was clear. These are mine. I trust you with them. Protect them, I will, Tae-sung promised. I'll protect all of you. This changed everything. Saber wasn't just bonding with him for food or companionship. She was including him in her family group. This was even deeper than he had hoped for, but it also meant danger. A mother with young was fiercely protective, and there were other predators on this planet. Bigger predators. Tae-sung learned that on day 45. He was fishing in the stream when Saber found him. She was agitated, making urgent sounds. Her body language screamed warning. Something was wrong. What is it? He asked. Then he heard it, a roar. Deeper and louder than anything he had heard before. It shook the trees. Sent birds flying in panic, Saber growled. Her scales bristled. Every line of her body said threat. Big threat. Tae-sung grabbed his spear and followed her. They ran through the forest together. He could barely keep up with her speed. They reached her den in minutes. Something was there. Something massive. It was easily twice Saber's size. 8 legs instead of 6, scales that were deep red like dried blood. No glowing patterns. Just bulk and muscle and teeth. The creature was digging at the den entrance, trying to get to the juveniles inside. A crimson worm. Tae-sung had seen tracks before, but never the creature itself. They were the largest predators on the planet. Even adult void stalkers like Saber avoided them. But Saber couldn't avoid this one. Her babies were in danger. She attacked without hesitation, leaped onto the worm's back and bit down hard. The worm roared and spun, trying to shake her off. They crashed through trees. The ground shook with their weight. Tae-sung knew Saber couldn't win alone. The worm was too big, too strong. She needed help. She needed him. He ran forward, fear and adrenaline mixing in his blood. His spear felt tiny in his hands. Useless against something that size. But he had to try. Saber had protected him. Now he would protect her. The worm saw him coming and laughed. At least it sounded like a laugh. A deep rumbling sound that said he was nothing. Not even worth noticing. It swatted at him with one massive claw. Tae-sung dodged and stabbed with his spear. The metal tip skidded off the worm's scales. Useless. He needed something else. Something that would actually hurt it. Fire. Fire had worked on the gray scales. Fire was primal, universal. He ran back to his camp, grabbed burning branches from his always lit fire, grabbed his container of ship fuel, stuff that burned hot and long. His hands moved fast, building something crude but effective. A firebomb, just fuel in a container with a burning rag. He ran back to the fight. Saber was bleeding again. The worm had her pinned. Its jaws were closing toward her throat. No time to think. Taesung threw the firebomb. It exploded against the worm's side. Fire spread across its scales. The creature screamed, released Saber, and turned on Taesung, eyes full of rage and pain. Taesung stood his ground, held another burning branch high, shouted with everything he had, "Come on, come get me!" The worm charged. Taesung dove aside at the last second. The creature slammed into a tree, dazed. Saber used that moment to attack again. This time she went for the throat. Her fangs found soft tissue between the scales. The fight lasted forever, or maybe just minutes. Time became meaningless. It was just fire and teeth and blood. Human and Voidstalker fighting side by side, partners, family. Finally, the worm had enough. It pulled away from Saber, bleeding heavily. Looked at both of them. Made a decision. It turned and fled into the forest, leaving a trail of blood. Silence fell. Taesung collapsed to his knees. His whole body shook. His hands were burned from the fire. His arms ached. But he was alive. They were both alive. Saber limped over to him. She was hurt worse this time. Deep cuts across her side, bite marks on her legs. But she was standing. She pressed her head against Taesung's shoulder. A gesture of gratitude, of bonding, of family. The juveniles emerged from the den carefully. They saw their mother alive, saw the strange two-legged creature who had helped save them. They approached Taesung slowly, sniffed him. Then one of them licked his hand. Taesung laughed through his tears. He was crying and didn't know when that started. These creatures, this deadly, beautiful alien family had accepted him completely. He was packed now. He was family. He treated Saber's wounds as best he could. She led him without complaint. Trusted him completely now. When he finished, she curled around him protectively. The juveniles piled on top. A family bundle keeping each other warm and safe. Taesung pulled out the emergency beacon. Looked at the camera. His face was dirty and burned and exhausted, but he was smiling. "Day 45, he said. "I fought beside an apex predator today. We defended her children together, we won, and now I'm lying here in a pile of alien predators and I've never felt safer in my life." He paused, looked at the view count. Over 4 billion now. The entire galaxy was watching. "This is what humans do," he continued. "We find the dangerous things, the scary things, the things that should kill us, and we make friends with them. We turn them into family. It's who we are. It's what we've always been," Saber rumbled softly. "Content, safe, loved." Taesung closed his eyes. Rescue would come eventually. But right now, on this deadly planet, surrounded by creatures that could tear him apart, he had everything he needed. He had family. Taesung knew he was going to die the moment the engine exploded. The cargo ship shook violently as red warning lights flooded the cockpit. He gripped the controls, trying to steady the vessel as it spun through space. Metal screamed around him. The navigation system was dead. Life support was failing. He had maybe 3 minutes before the ship tore itself apart. "Emergency Protocol Alpha," he shouted at the computer. His voice was steady even though his hands shook. "Find me somewhere to land, anywhere." The computer beeped weakly. A single planet appeared on the dying screen. It was close, maybe 10 minutes away at current speed. That was all Taesung needed to know. He pointed the ship toward it and prayed. The descent was brutal. Fire surrounded the ship as it hit the atmosphere. Taesung strapped himself tight into the pilot seat and held on. The ship wasn't designed for planet landings. It was a deep space hauler, meant to drift between stations in the quiet of space. Now it was a falling brick wrapped in flames. Trees rushed up to meet him. Taesung saw green and brown, and then everything went black. He woke up to pain. His head throbbed. His left arm hurt badly. Blood dripped from a cut above his eye. But he was alive. The cockpit had held together mostly. Everything else was twisted metal and broken glass. Taesung unbuckled himself and fell to the floor. The ship was tilted at a strange angle. He crawled toward the emergency kit, grabbed it, and then forced open the side door. Sunlight hit him like a hammer. He stumbled out onto dirt and grass. The ship had carved a long scar through a forest. Trees were knocked down in every direction. Smoke rose from the wreckage behind him. He opened the emergency kit with shaking hands. Bandages, pain medicine, water purification tablets, a basic medical scanner, and the emergency beacon. He turned it on and watched the small screen light up. Signal strength, weak. Range 3 light-years. Estimated rescue time, 40 to 90 days. Taesung laughed, but it wasn't a happy sound. 3 months alone on an unknown planet. He looked around at the forest. Everything was too quiet. No birds, no insects, just silence. The medical scanner beeped as it finished checking him. Cracked rib, sprained wrist, mild concussion. Could be worse. He swallowed some pain medicine and drank water from his supply. Then he noticed something odd about the emergency beacon. A red light was blinking. The distress signal wasn't just sending location data, it was broadcasting video. The beacon had automatically activated its survival documentation system. Everything he did was being sent out into space, recorded and transmitted to anyone who was listening. Taesung looked at the small camera lens on the beacon. Somewhere out there, someone might be watching. Maybe lots of someone's. The thought was strange and uncomfortable, but also slightly comforting. If he died here, at least there would be a record. Well, he said to the camera, my name is Kwon Taesung. My ship just crashed on an uncharted planet. If anyone is watching this, I'm going to try to survive until rescue arrives. Wish me luck. He spent the next hour salvaging what he could from the wreck. Most of the cargo was ruined, but he found some useful things. A thermal blanket, a small plasma cutter that still worked, some protein bars, a broken tablet that might be fixable, and his personal bag, which had his journal and his collection of old Earth books about animals. The sun was starting to set. Taesung knew he needed shelter fast. He had no idea what lived on this planet, but the silence bothered him. Silence usually meant predators. He found a rocky area nearby with a small cave entrance. It wasn't deep, maybe 5 meters, but it was dry and defensible. He dragged his supplies inside and used the plasma cutter to seal some sharp metal pieces across the entrance. Not much of a barrier, but better than nothing. As darkness fell, he activated a small light stick. The cave filled with soft blue glow. Taesung sat against the rock wall and opened a protein bar. It tasted like cardboard, but he was too hungry to care. That's when he heard the first sound. A roar. Deep and powerful. It came from somewhere in the forest, maybe a kilometer away. It was answered by another roar. And another. At least 3 of them, whatever they were. Taesung checked the emergency beacon. The camera was still recording. He picked it up and spoke quietly. I'm hearing large predators out there. Multiple individuals. They sound big. Really big. He paused. I studied xenobiology as a hobby. Spent years reading about alien creatures. But knowing about them from books and actually being here are very different things. Another roar, closer this time. Taesung set down the beacon so the camera pointed at the cave entrance. He gripped a piece of sharp metal in his good hand. His makeshift weapon looked pathetic, but it was all he had. Something moved in the darkness outside. He could see shapes between the trees. Large shapes. His heart pounded in his chest. The creatures were circling. Checking out the crash site. Checking out him. One of them came close to the cave entrance. Taesung caught a glimpse in the moonlight. It was huge, 4 legs, maybe 2 meters tall at the shoulder, scaled skin that reflected the light, eyes that glowed yellow in the dark. It sniffed at the metal barrier. Then it looked directly at Taesung. For a moment, human and alien predator stared at each other. Taesung didn't move. Didn't breathe. The creature's mouth opened, showing rows of teeth. Then it turned and walked away. The other creatures followed. Their footsteps faded into the night. Taesung let out a breath he didn't know he was holding. He looked at the beacon camera. I don't think they knew what to make of me, he said. I'm something new. Something that doesn't fit their understanding of prey. That bought me some time. But they'll be back. Once they figure out I'm food, they'll come for me. He wrapped himself in the thermal blanket and tried to rest. Sleep wouldn't come easy. Every sound made him jump. Every shadow looked like teeth and claws, but he was alive. Day 1 was over. How many more days could he survive? Somewhere out in space, his broadcast signal traveled through the void. Somewhere on distant worlds and space stations, beings from 100 different species were starting to watch. The human survival show had begun, and not one of them thought he would last a week. Day 21 was the day everything changed. Taesung had been watching the apex predator for over 2 weeks now. He had learned so much. The creature was female. He could tell from her behavior patterns and body shape. She had a defined territory that covered about 5 square kilometers of forest. She marked the boundaries with claw marks on trees and scent markers that smelled like burnt copper. He had started calling her Saber because of the long fangs. It seemed fitting. Every night he left food at the same spot. Every morning it was gone. Saber had learned to expect the offerings. She no longer acted surprised or cautious. This was part of her routine now, but they hadn't made direct contact yet. Taesung needed her to associate him with the food. He needed her to see him as the provider, not as prey or threat. Today was the day he would try. He prepared carefully, took one of the better catches from his traps, a fat six-legged creature that would make a good meal for Saber. He checked the time. Late afternoon. Saber usually appeared around this time to patrol her territory. Taesung walked to the offering spot with the emergency beacon clipped to his belt. Camera recording. Over 2 billion viewers watching across the galaxy. He tried not to think about that. Tried to focus on what he needed to do. He placed the food on the ground and stepped back. Then he waited and waited. The sun moved lower in the sky. Shadows grew longer. Taesung stood still, patient. His grandmother's voice echoed in his memory. Animals can sense nervousness, she used to say. Stay calm. Stay confident. Show them you mean no harm. A branch cracked in the forest. Taesung's pulse jumped, but he kept his face neutral. There, movement in the shadows. Saber emerged from the trees slowly. She looked at the food, then at Taesung. Her glowing patterns pulsed slightly brighter. Taesung didn't move, didn't speak. He just stood there, showing her he was the one who brought the food. He was the provider. He was safe. Saber approached cautiously. 3 meters away. 2 meters. She could cover that distance in a heartbeat and tear him apart. Every instinct screamed at Taesung to run. He ignored those instincts. Running would trigger her prey drive. Standing still was his only chance. 1 meter. Saber sniffed the air. Her eyes, which were dark blue with slit pupils, fixed on Taesung. She was analyzing him, deciding if he was food, threat, or something else. Then she looked down at the offering. She picked it up in her jaws and stepped back. Still watching him. She ate quickly, bones crunching. When she finished, she looked at Taesung again. They stood there, human and alien predators, studying each other. Saber made a sound. Low and rumbling. Not aggressive. Almost questioning, like she was trying to figure out what to make of this strange two-legged creature that kept feeding her. Taesung spoke softly. I'm a friend. Just a friend trying to survive. We can help each other. Saber tilted her head slightly. The gesture was so familiar, so dog-like, that Taesung almost smiled. Then she turned and walked back into the forest. Taesung let out a breath he had been holding. His hands were shaking. He looked at the beacon camera. First direct contact, he said. She didn't attack. She took the food while I was standing right there. That's huge progress. That's trust starting to form. The comments from his viewers exploded. Most aliens thought he was insane. A few were impressed. The humans watching understood what he was doing. Yuna posted a long comment about domestication theory and trust building. Taesung smiled when he read it later. Over the next week, he repeated the same process. Every day, Saber came to get her food. Every day, she got a little closer, a little more comfortable. On day 25, she ate while Taesung stood just 2 meters away. On day 27, she made a sound that might have been contentment after eating. On day 28, disaster struck. Taesung was out foraging when he heard the fight. Roars and screams echoed through the forest. He ran toward the sound, not thinking about danger. The emergency beacon bounced on his belt, camera catching everything. He found Saber in a clearing. She was fighting 3 of the grayscales, the pack hunters. They had entered her territory. Taesung didn't know if they were hunting or challenging her, but it didn't matter. The fight was brutal. Saber was bigger and stronger, but the grayscales were fast and worked together. They circled her, darting in to bite and claw. She roared and caught one in her jaws, shaking it hard. The creature went limp. But the other 2 pressed their attack. Taesung saw blood. Saber's blood. Dark blue against her black scales. He didn't think. He just acted. He grabbed a burning branch from his small campfire nearby, shouted loud, ran at the grayscales waving the fire. Fire was universal. Every predator understood fire meant danger. The grayscales scattered, confused by this new threat. Taesung stood between them and Saber, holding the burning branch high. His heart hammered. His legs felt weak, but he didn't back down. The grayscales looked at him. looked at the fire, made a decision. They grabbed their dead packmate and ran into the forest. Silence fell. Taesung dropped the branch and turned to Saber. She was lying on her side, breathing hard. Blood leaked from several wounds. The worst was a deep gash on her front leg. "Easy," Taesung said softly. He approached slowly. Saber's eyes tracked him, but she didn't move. "Too tired, too hurt. I'm going to help you. Please don't eat me." He pulled out his medical kit. It was designed for humans, but biology was biology. He had antiseptic spray, bandages, a wound sealer that might work on alien flesh. Saber watched as he knelt beside her wounded leg. She could kill him easily, even injured. One bite and he would be dead. Taesung tried not to think about that. He focused on the wound. "This is going to sting," he said. He sprayed antiseptic on the gash. Saber flinched but didn't pull away, didn't snap at him. She rumbled low, but the sound wasn't aggressive. It was pain mixed with something else. Trust, maybe. Taesung cleaned the wound as best he could, applied the sealer, wrapped it with bandages. His hands were steady even though inside he was terrified. When he finished, he sat back. "There. That should help it heal." Saber lifted her head and looked at the bandage, then at Taesung. She made that questioning sound again. Then she did something amazing. She reached out with her uninjured front leg and gently touched Taesung's arm. Just a brief touch. Her claws were retracted. It was a thank you. Taesung felt tears in his eyes, not from fear, from something bigger. Connection. Understanding. The same thing that happened thousands of years ago when the first human fed the first wolf, the moment that changed everything. "You're welcome," he whispered. Saber stayed near his cave that night, resting, healing. Taesung kept watch, making sure no other predators came near. He fed her more food, brought her water in a salvaged container. She accepted both. By morning, she could stand. The wound was already healing faster than Taesung expected. Alien biology was different, maybe better in some ways. Saber looked at him for a long moment before leaving. Then she made a sound, different from the others, softer, more complex. Taesung didn't know what it meant, but it felt like a promise. She would remember this. She would remember him. Day 30 came with rain again. Taesung sat in his cave watching the viewer count climb past 3 billion. The galaxy couldn't look away. The human was doing the impossible. He checked the comments. Most were still skeptical, but some were starting to believe. Some were starting to see what he saw. Potential. Partnership. The same thing humans had done with so many creatures on Earth. One comment stood out. It was from Yuna, the human scientist who had been following his journey. "You're not just surviving," she wrote. "You're showing them who we are. You're showing them what makes us human." "Don't stop," Taesung smiled. He wouldn't stop. He couldn't stop now. Something amazing was happening on this deadly planet. Something that would change everything. He looked out at the forest. Somewhere out there, Saber was resting, healing, learning to trust, and so was he.